So what we're gonna do is we're gonna look at this chicken coop area that is in the picture on your screen right now, to where you can see where north is. There's the small area in the corner that's gonna be where the chicken coop is. The chicken run is around there. You got your food and water, and then the big white area around the edge, that's just the yard. You know what I mean? Now, in an ideal world, I do wish everybody was able to do a chicken tractor system so their chickens were able to rotate. You can move them around the yard. They can free range. But I also understand not everybody is able to do that. So for those that do have to keep their chickens in a coop, which is unfortunate, I would say the first thing to consider is make sure you don't have too many chickens. You know, there's a lot of strategies for doing chickens in a permaculture perspective. Do not crowd that area out, because you're gonna have a lot of E. coli, salmonella, disease, bumblefoot, you know, all that sort of thing. Now, if you do have to have that run in that chicken area enclosed all the time, you can still plant around it in a way that is going to benefit you and your girls. So the way that I would approach this is think about things that you can plant that can provide some shade, but also food sources for the birds, things that will keep pests or rodents away, things that might attract pollinators, bugs, and insects that are additional food, things that are grab and grow fruit that you can just throw into the chicken coop or the chicken run. So the plants that I would try to select, I want to think about according to, you know, all of those different variables. Now, depending on if you're in zones 3 through 8 or 9 through 11, the types of plants are going to vary a little bit. There are certain things that they're really gonna wanna eat. There's certain things that they're not gonna give two hoots and a scoop about. So if you're in zones 9 through 11, I'll answer this primarily with Florida, California, warmer parts of Texas, Arizona, you know, Utah in mind. But there are concepts in here that are going to be applicable. Many of the plants are applicable all over the US. So let's zoom in first on our top story trees. What I've done here is I've identified where north is, where northeast is, because that's going to be a lot of shade. Northwest and southwest is going to be a lot of sun. So what I'm doing is I'm putting a semi-dwarf tree at the corner of each of the four corners of the chicken coop and the chicken run. Now, I chose 2 moringa because moringa practically is very high in protein, amino acids, in minerals. It has a taproot. It's a lot of good, healthy greens. The chickens can have the greens. They can have the leaves. They can eat the young seed pods when they're very young and very small. So the moringa is a fantastic one for those chickens, as just grab a branch and throw it in. I would not grow that moringa for my top story as a tree. I would probably pollard it, which is kind of like a crepe myrtle. You know what I mean? Like you chop it off 3 feet tall every time. I let it get to be a 3 foot tall stick, sorry, let it grow to be like 10 or 12 feet tall, cut it back to 3 or 4 feet. 10 or 12 feet tall, 3 or 4 feet. And I do that multiple times during the year, and I just throw the leaves in to the chicken coop. The second plant I would put in the shaded area would be katuk. Katuk is very, very high in calcium specifically, really good for humans, nursing mothers, for cattle and goats that are milk producers. So think about your chicken eggs. So it's another great green that's going to grow more bushy. That's an easy one to grab and give to the girls. The berries are also edible by your chickens. And then the last one for my top story on there is a dwarf mulberry. So think of dwarf Thai red, dwarf everbearing mulberry, Chiang Mai, dwarf Shah Reza. Those are all really good choices that can be grown more as a bush. I like this one because the leaves are going to provide shade. I can also dry the leaves, grind it up, and put it into their food. The berries are super edible. The girls love those berries. And it's an easy one that if you open the coop up at the end of the day for 15 minutes, they'll go around the mulberry tree and just jump and, jump their little feather butts up in the air, and they'll get the berries that they can. It's an easy one for them to hide around as well. So those are the top story trees, or the semi-dwarf trees that I would put around the base. Next, what I'm going to do is think about doing bushes that are also going to provide, and I'm going to center those. Those are the blue images that you see there in between my top story trees. So let's start in the north. In the north area, I'm doing a very shade-tolerant Turk's cap hibiscus. The flowers are edible. It's going to provide shade. It gets little berries where the flowers were. It's another one that the chickens will love to go around and hide in the midst of and just interact with that way. On the east side there, I put in a cherry of the Rio Grande because they love those berries. I mean, very high in antioxidants and vitamin C. On the south side, I stuck a rosemary in because rosemary is really good at keeping away pests, bugs, insects that are going to be bad for the garden, but also take a sprig of that, lay it down in the nesting box, and it helps repel ticks and mites and, you know, that sort of thing as well. On the west side, I did a Simpson stopper. One, because it brings in a lot of native pollinators, and those bugs are food sources for your girls. Secondly, Simpson stopper, the berries of that are very edible for the chickens. They're edible for humans too. I don't think they taste real great, but it's an easy one to grab those berries and throw them into your birds as well. Once I've done my top story trees and my shrubs, then I'm going to zoom in on my understory. So now think about low growing plants that are going to be very beneficial for your girls. So let's start on the north and the northwest. Comfrey, 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 comfrey. This is an amazing mineral supplement for your girls. So think of this as helping you replace your oyster shells, you know, as a calcium supplement. So this is going to grow the best in a dappled shade area. It does not always grow year round in Florida. It doesn't grow year round in the Midwest either. But in the Midwest, I would say zones 3 through 8, you could do all the way around your chicken coop with comfrey, and that's probably going to be one of the most bang for your buck. There also in the north, I did partridge berry. It's a low growing ground cover that's really good for pigeons, love it. Partridge, love it. Quail really love it. But the berries are edible, grows as a great shade tolerant ground cover. Then in the front there along the north, think about things that are going to be good for egg production. So marigolds, nasturtiums, and calendula, those have that deep orange and red color that are going to give you a great yolk color for your eggs. And they just look pretty as well. When you go and open up the door to your chicken coop, think pretty and highly scented herbs. Pretty much any highly scented herb can be harvested and thrown in the nesting box, both fresh or dried, but all of those flowers are good to sprinkle in their food as well. They're repelling the pests and the ticks and the mites and the fleas and that sort of thing around your coop, but also they look really pretty. The second one that I would add in there as well is Panadol. If you're in the Midwest, I'd probably do mint, but Panadol in the South is great for keeping out rodents. So think keeping out rats, mice, and snakes. Very, very highly scented. It smells a little bit skunky like cannabis, but it does work very well at repelling the pests and the mites. So I like to do that right around the nesting box area because just rodents like possums, they just don't enjoy it. Now it's not completely 100% foolproof, but in a lot of cases it can be. So it's very, very helpful. Also on that west side where it's really sunny, think your sun-loving, highly scented herbs that could be good for egg production. Fennel and dill, really good for egg production, really increases and stimulates egg production. Parsley is gonna be good for that. Cilantro is gonna be good for that. And then the other things that are good, just again, to keep away the bad bugs are like catmint or lemon balm. Those can be hung in the coop like as an herb bundle, you know, hanging inside, or you can just lay them in the nesting box and let them nest on top of it. And it's a really good way just to increase that productivity around your system. The other reason I would say that I like to grow around my coop is, you know, obviously it looks pretty, you know, you're helping bugs and you're providing food sources, but practically, I like to utilize the nutrients. So when I'm cleaning out the run and I'm scooping poop or I'm taking hay or straw out, I'm literally just putting it around the base of those fruit trees and that becomes my mulch. So I never have to fertilize those trees because every time I clean out the coop or the run, I'm cycling that back into my system. You know, and isn't that the name of the game anyway? You know, I think for us as food foresters, and I'm gonna go ahead and close my computer here, as food foresters, and permaculture folks, we have to think about the connectedness to our system. That is the goal at the end of the day, is you being connected to your cows, to your goats, to your chickens, to the dogs and the cats that are on the property, being connected to your fruit trees and your berry bushes, being connected to chopping and dropping. Part of that process is that you are an integral part of your ecosystem. You are not separate from it. We are here to steward it in the way that God had planned and in the way that nature intended that connectivity.